It's Brian Preston, the Money Guy.
Tim has a question. He says, we know timing the market is not smart generally, but we know the future, like increased interest rates probably coming. Why not wait until the last expected interest rate increase takes place on top of dollar cost averaging and then do a lump sum? Does that make sense? He's basically saying, if we think that this is going to happen with interest rates, why would you not wait?
So I want to make sure, Tim, I'm going to reframe your question. Mm-hmm. Hey, we know the timing the market doesn't work and is a futile exercise, but why don't we just time the market? Right now, I'm saying that tongue in cheek. But here's what I think is so interesting. Here's what I think is so interesting.
Not wrong.
Nate, I'm going to put you on the spot. Can you do that? Can I flip to some stuff and you pull something up on screen? I'm going to go back to the Fed raising interest rates real fast. Don't pull it up yet, Nate, because you're going to give people seizures. All right. So if you can look at this, right? So this is the Fed raising rates. We know that they dropped rates during the Great Recession. Rates hung around zero. Well, then they started rising, right? Rates started rising. And you might have said, hey, you know what? Oh, right around 2017, 2018, rates have come up. They were flat for a while. Now the Fed funds rate's around 2%. I bet we're getting close to these rates. You know, I'm gonna go ahead and invest that lump sum because I've got this thing figured out. Because right, I know what's happening. I know what's going on. Nobody at that time, and I mean nobody at that time, knew that COVID was coming. Like, we did not know that we were going to have this massive economic thing. They were going to slash rates back into the basement. We were going to start this cycle all over. No matter how clear the future seems, it's often not clear. It's the unknown. It's the unexpected. If we had any ability to do that incredibly well, we'd all be rich right now. Right? We'd all have tons of money, and we'd all know, none of us would get in car wrecks. We'd all have those things figured out. The problem with financial markets is that they can humble you incredibly quickly, and it usually happens at the moment when you say things like, yeah, but I know. Well, I know rates are, because by the way, in 2009, 2010, you could have said this, Brian, rates are at the bottom. They have to increase. Rates are going up. They're going up. And you would have been right. What you did not know is that rates weren't going to start going up until 2016. And then you didn't know you're going to start this whole thing over again in 2020. We have to be very careful and check our overconfidence at the door when it comes to making financial decisions around what we know or think we know is going to happen in the financial market.
This is a human condition with this overconfidence, because Tim's done a very analytical or very thinking person's thing is that, okay, we know the Fed, they announced their meeting schedule. We can just look at their meeting schedule. We can go ahead and just extrapolate, because Jerome Powell has said that he's going to raise rates until the job is done. And we'll just, every meeting for the foreseeable, you know, Tim will choose the date that he thinks, or he'll wait for them to say. But I like the logic, but here's the reality of how this actually plays out. Yes, the Federal Reserve posts their meeting schedule, but they're tracking data throughout the process. And there's also outside influences. Like, think about right now, there's geopolitical stuff going on all over the place. I mean, just weird stuff that it's hard to account for in your finances. And everybody forgets the markets are a forward-looking indicator.
Right.
They are not looking at what's going on news and information-wise today. It's not like the news, the Dow Jones or the S&P 500 is waiting for the papers to drop or the internet to drop and go, oh, based on today's news, this is what we're going to do. No, the market, the number of buyers, the number of sellers are trying to look to the future and say, hey, what is the next 6 months? What is the next 9 months in the future? What does the next 12 to 18 months look like from market environment, business, you know, how trends are going, and then figure out what the next step forward is. And what I would worry about is that you've heard Jerome Powell come out with a very strong stance that he's going to keep raising rates until the job is done and inflation is tamed. But what's to say we don't have some geopolitical event where conflict somewhere in the world spikes up and all of a sudden all of us go, whoa, holy cow. And consumers, by the way, will spin on a dime on consumption. You know, everybody who's buying washing machines, new cars, and everything else will be like, I'm going to shut it all down, no, we're not buying anything. You're going to drive that clunkety old car for a few more years, go over there and Fonzie that dryer so that it keeps working. You're going to do whatever it takes to get through that moment, and you'll see consumption just stop. And when that happens, the market gets crushed. And what do you think the Federal Reserve, they're going to be like, whoa, all demand is dried up.
Got to stimulate.
They're going to we need to stimulate this thing because, man, this thing is headed for the ditch. They're going to turn course. But you wouldn't have known that because you still got your Federal Reserve meeting schedule, and you were like, well, I'm waiting for them to. And remember how fast things turn on a dime on the recovery, because we know the first month of recovery from the bottom of a downturn of a bear market, what did we figure out
14%.
It was 14%. The first 3 months was 21%.
Right.
The first year was over 40%. You don't get to choose that by having a date on the calendar. Here's how you get that. I can give you a guaranteed way to get that great rate of return. Always be buying.
Love it.
Throughout the process, hold your nose. I don't care if it's scary right now. I think, I've shared with y'all my neighbor that I love. Fortunately, he's not listening to my content. I set him up on doing a $5,000 investment. And I said, just get your feet wet. Let's do this every month. And, after the first time he purchases, the market's lost 15%. And he's like,
I don't like this investing thing.
He's like, this investing thing's for the birds. I'm not doing this anymore. And I'm like, oh, it makes me so sad because at this moment in time, the ability to buy low, sell high is created by buying when everybody else is looking for the exits. And that's what we're experiencing. But I don't know when that bottom point is. And I'm not going to try to find it. I'm just going to always be buying. So when people ask me, what do you do with your own money? I'm buying. And I'm not buying, one time a month. I'm buying every week. I've really turned this into a crazy thing because I just love the experience of knowing no matter what is going on economically, geopolitically, or whatever else, I have the ability to buy into, and I count on the ever-expanding human condition where we're innovating, we're creating technology, we're creating growth. That's not going anywhere, and I'm going to find a way to be able to profit, and I can do that by just buying into the markets.